set before you? None noted. Can I have an adoption of the agenda, please? Mayor Lavalley
I'll second it.
and Councillor Foran, thank you. Before we continue, any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
Don't you have to vote on the adoption agenda?
No, it's committee level, so it's
Oh, sorry.
slightly different.
I'm in
Councillor.
board meeting mode.
Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, thank you. And any unfinished business? None noted. Okay, on to section 8 there, which is new business. And while we're here today, we are looking at the 2023 proposed budget summary, and there is a PowerPoint presentation. I'd like to hand over to the Treasurer, Brian Martin, or Deputy Treasurer, Jen Bajar, please. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. We're here today to present the proposed 2023 budget. The first report we look at is the budget summary. So this report is indeed a summary of the 2023 budget. We'll move right into the PowerPoint presentation, which will give all the details for this summary. And we'll start with the next slide, which is the objective. The objective of the municipal budget process is to determine how much money the municipality will collect spend in the year. It determines the level of service provided to South Algonquin residents and guides decisions on spending. This presentation will detail both the operating and capital revenue and expenditure forecasts, as well as provide a summary of anticipated changes, proposed tax rate, and available funding for the 2023 budget. Next slide. So starting off, I'll detail the municipality's non-tax revenues. The left-hand column shows the functional categories. We'll begin with the general government and the 2023 budget of $1,099,050. This amount is largely comprised of the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund and department-generated fees of $81,950. Our departmental fees have increased as we've seen a significant benefit from investment income due to the 8 Bank of Canada interest rate hikes in the past 12 months. Currently, we are enjoying a 4.85% interest rate on our bank accounts. Yes. Looking at protection, fire department cost recovery from accident scene attendants, Ministry of Natural Resource and Forestry fire agreement funds, and building septic permit revenues make up the $62,500 amount. Transportation's 2023 budget for non-tax revenue is $307,000. This includes $72,542 from the gas tax fund, $137,916 from the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, and the Northern Ontario Resource Development Support Fund of $94,727. Moving down, we come to our environmental revenues, which include tipping fees, reimbursement programs such as the electronic products, metal recycling, product care, and automotive materials. Our health and social service revenues include rent received from the medical center, the resource center, and the EMS ambulance bays. Recreation non-tax revenues include the Canada Day grant of $4,900, the library operating grant of $6,400, the Library Ontario Trillium Fund grant $3,300, and recreation fundraising at $15,000. And lastly, our planning revenues are comprised of planning application fees and shoreline road allowance sales. Next slide. So this slide reviews our partnership funds from the provincial and federal levels of government. The Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund has increased from 2022 by $3,300 and will be used to fund our operating expenditures. We have a court security grant. It's a small credit we received from the Ministry of Finance, and this helps supplement our policing. Our OSIP, or known as on the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, has increased from 2022 by 18,000. Staff are proposing that this grant be used to fund the Hay Creek Road reconstruction project in 2025. The federal gas tax, also known as the Canada Community Building Fund, has a slight increase of $3,000 from 2022 and will be used to fund the roads drainage project through the township and the completion of the asset management plan. And lastly, the Canadian Heritage Grant funds our community's Canada Day celebrations. Next slide. Here we look at other grants that are expected in 2023. The Canada Summer Grants the Canada Summer Grants application has been completed and we're awaiting approval. This will be used to fund 2 Works Department positions. The Northern Ontario Resource Development Support Grant was approved in 2021 for the Hay Creek Road reconstruction project in 2025. This is a 5-year agreement that will bring the municipality $473,000. Just a bit of a reminder, this grant can be used for infrastructure impacted by natural resource extraction. So things such as mining and logging will fall under that. The last on this slide is library operating and pay equity grant. And this will help fund the library operating expenses. Next slide. So into operating expenses. As we've all noticed, the cost of everything has risen dramatically. COVID-19 impacts and supply chain issues are still driving the highest inflation rates seen since 1991. In December 2022, the inflation rate was 6.3%, which was up from 5.1% in January of 2022. And currently we're sitting at 5.9%. Just for interest's sake, the peak of inflation was June of 2022 at 8.1%. So as you can imagine, this has impacted our budget and can be seen through the increased cost of goods, everything from fuel to supplies to levy supports. Wages and benefits have increased, largely due to a compensation and pay equity review completed in 2022 as a result of bringing the CBO on full-time. Their increase will also accommodate staff wage grid step increases and short-term disability plan. There has been no cost of living adjustment this year for council or staff, which would have been based on Canada's July 2022 CPI and inflation rate of 7.6, as guided by our human resource policy that council passed in September of 2021. Overall, we're seeing a 22.8% increase in the wages and benefits lines over 2022 budgeted amounts. Our insurance premium has increased 19%, up from $75,000 in 2022 to $86,000 in 2023. 11.5% of the increase is a direct result of the changes to valuation of our assets and an 8.5% increase in premium rates. Unfortunately, we're not unique with this increase as it's being seen industry-wide. The District of Nipissing Social Services Administration Board provides our community with social services, including EMS, daycare, resource center services, and we will be seeing an increase in the 2023 levy requirement. I'd also like to note that there will be an increase in our shredding program costs at the landfill site and in our landfill site monitoring fees. And we have a newly implemented recycling program, which will have an anticipated cost of $22,000 annually. So before moving from our operating expenses, our head librarian Charlene is here today to discuss the 2-year pilot project that was started in 2022. And I think that she is on Zoom with us.
Good morning. So last year, the first week of May, we started a 2-year pilot project to extend our services onto Saturdays. So we did this by creating 4-hour shifts that we implemented at both branches. These hours have been well received and have increased our circulations and overall usage. From May to February 2023, the Madawaska branch had 243 Saturday visitors, and the Whitney branch had 255 visitors. So for a total of 490 visitors on our Saturdays. This project also supports the library's long-term strategic goal to become an accredited library. One of the requirements of that is to have the main branch open 20 hours a week and any other branches a minimum of 12 hours a week. So this step is slowly moving us towards that direction. A few years ago, a representative from the ministry mentioned that future funding may become dependent upon being accredited. So our library operating grant changes may be coming. So this accreditation may become a future requirement. Any questions?
I have a question, Charlene. It's
Okay.
Councillor Collins here. Month by month, did you see that Saturdays, the attendance was more during the summer months when we have more tourists and second homeowners here in the town, or was it more during the winter?
It really has been spread out. Like it did, we did have increased numbers at the beginning of the project. So last summer, yes, there was a lot of usage, but it's been consistent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Charlene, just a comment, I find those numbers actually pretty encouraging. I just interested in your feedback on that. How does this compare to the days that you are open during the week, or do you keep stats on those?
Oh yeah, we keep stats on absolutely everything as part of our requirements for the annual survey. Actually, we've also noted, and it could be also more people are coming out after COVID, but overall our stats have been increasing across all of our open days. For me, I've noticed my Thursdays are much busier now since the Saturday came into play, and I'm not sure why. But overall, we've had increases, and I'm guessing this will keep going up because I think we'll have more people also visiting the area again. More cottagers were back last year as well. So I think it's going to keep going up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions for Charlene? Okay, we'll move to the next slide. Thanks, Charlene.
Thank you.
This slide details the levies paid for 2023 services. We will see a decrease in our policing cost. It's down 13,000 from 2022. The annual levy is set to $309,532. The Renfrew County District Health Unit levy has a small increase of $461. DSAB, or the District of Nipissing Social Services Administration Board, will see a 2% increase in the levy, up $11,520. The annual levy is set to $563,510. Our annual fee to Castle Home for the Aged, will decrease by $3,250 for 2023. We'll see a small decrease of $385 in the levy requirements for MPAC. The annual levy for MPAC will be $40,670. And just a bit of a summary that the levies paid for services provided represent approximately 26% of the municipality's operating expenses. Next slide. Okay, so this slide will detail our proposed capital spending for the 2023 budget. Our largest capital expenditure this year will be the Town Suite accounting software as presented to council in 2021. The implementation schedule will keep staff busy throughout the spring and summer with a fully functioning system anticipated for late summer. This project will be funded with provincial grant funds, specifically the Modernization Efficiency Grant received in 2019. The municipal office window replacement renovation for $16,000 is a project which will utilize the remaining COVID-19 Safe Restart grant. of which ventilation is an eligible project item. This will replace 5 windows within the office. Next, we'll be completing our asset management plan in the very near future, and we'll be funding it through the gas tax grant. The generator purchase for the township office will support our emergency management services as well as daily administration efforts during power outages and ensures the continuity of government. The smaller generator currently at the building could be repurposed to another location for its remaining life. Next, you'll see the fire department flammable resistant cabinets and Whitney Fire Hall railings. Our insurance company completed a facility assessment in 2022, and as a result, we are required to make the listed changes. The fire department's requesting new bunker gear, thermal cameras, and burn signal signage. We propose that council fund the purchases from the fire equipment reserve with an agreement to pay back the reserve over the next 3 years. That's $7,350 per year. I'll let Ian speak to the specifics of this request. Jennifer would like to add.
There's nothing I'd like to add. I'm open to answer any questions you have on those requests. The ticks, the thermal imaging cameras, identify hotspot. We currently have like a thermometer type thing that pinpoints temperatures. It only pinpoints the temperature where you put the red dot. Whereas with a thermal imaging camera, we get a better picture of where any hotspots are in the building, or heaven forbid, if there's any people still inside the building. I know we do not do inside, but if they're in close proximity to windows, doors, or anything like that, the thermal imaging cameras give us that ability to see through the dark, to see through smoke, and look for hot sources. Primarily, I'm hopeful it's only ever used for us to seek out the hot spots after the fire is extinguished and make sure we're not walking away and leaving a second fire to build up. That's the thermal imaging. The bunker gear request comes from, we do have new people joining the department. We have people joining, we have people leaving. At the moment, I recycle where possible existing clothing that's still within its parameter, its time frame of use after it's been cleaned and inspected. Unfortunately, we never recruit people that are the same size as the people we lose. What I currently do is a new person joins, I equip them as best I can, as best fit as possible, and then make sure they're staying with us for 6 months or so. You know, they turn up to practice, they turn up to fires, because these items are like personally sized to them. Unfortunately, they're expensive. That's the bunker items I put down there. What else was on this? Oh, the burn boards. Yes, it came to my attention in the middle of the summer that currently our burn indicator boards are not in the best places. You know, anybody coming into our township either has to come in east or west on Highway 60, 127 or 523. They could actually go completely to their cottage and never see a current location burn board. The current locations are on the side of the fire hall, in front of the Madawaska Community Centre, at the Alien Lake Dam, which does cover everybody going down to the Alien Lake area. There's one at Cross Lake, but it is in the car park at Cross Lake for the residents going down to Cross Lake. Anybody coming down the 523 and approaching Madawaska, they won't see it. And the two off of 127 are placed at either end of Mackenzie Lake Road, North Mackenzie Lake Road. They're either end, but they're actually off 127. If you travel down 127, you do not see a burn board indicator sign. I feel it was very, very relevant that we should have indicator boards. I don't know the logistics of getting them placed onto a numbered highway with MTO. I understand there's a lot of hoops to be jumped through, and I'm totally unsure of like the costings involved with actually placing the signs on the major highways. But it would mean that nobody could ever say they came into our township and didn't see a burn board. The burn indicator boards I'm talking about, when we say no burn, fire ban, whatever, burn, and then obviously, and our existing ones also at the moment, the information on there regarding permit required is now out of date with our current bylaw and burn permits being required at all times. So that covers the burn permits. The 5,000 I put on there was a guess, just to get something on the budget sheet for that project.
Ian, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Who goes around and changes these signs? And they have to be all changed at once, obviously.
Yes, it's currently last year, it fell to me. I understand in previous years, the works department completed that task.
When they're doing roads, we'll go around and do it.
Yep.
Now, how do you come up with this sign? Because I'm going back just a couple of years now.
Yes,
We used to work with the Ministry of Natural Resources in terms of what their situation was in terms of fire. And then did we not then put ours up based on that, or do we just make a determination?
no, we made
within
it, so
us?
the burn indicator boards, we moved, there's a set date in our
Okay.
bylaw that gives us the date when we go to day burn only or night burn only. With regard, it's the fire ban, that's the one we liaise with the MNRF.
Okay.
I get daily bulletins as to basically how dry the ground is and what the risk is of wildfire. And that's when we move, that's the one we negotiate, well, we liaise with them and watch also the other surrounding municipalities as to
Okay.
how dry the ground cover is as to whether or not we go to a fire ban.
So if there's a fire ban here,
Yes,
would you put that board at high, or is there something that goes around
No,
that you put up
it's
says
literally-
fire ban?
it's basically sort of like a traffic light indicator, you know, green, yellow and red's fire ban. I'd have to go around and move them all immediately to fire ban.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor From.
I have a couple of questions. First, we'll deal with the signs first, because we're already on that.
Yes.
You're not going to eliminate the signs that are already
No.
up there.
No.
Because I think we are reaching like 95% of the people in township with those signs. I think a lot of the people that are going to see the signs when they're entering the township are going to exit the township at the other end. It really doesn't matter. But it's okay for that 5% that we're not capturing now. That's fine. I just want to make sure we're going to eliminate the ones that are already up.
One of sorry, if I interrupt on that point, one of the reasons why it came prominent was we actually had a person burning on 523. It caused the MNRF to come up in a helicopter. It caused us 2 calls when we were going out looking for the fire, assuming it was a wildfire. It actually turned out to be on their private property. And looking at, it didn't matter which direction he came from to go to that property on 523, unless he specifically looked into the car park at Cross Lake, he wouldn't have seen it. That was what sort of triggered my approach to it.
Yeah, and there are 2 other access points off 523 to Lyle Lake or Cross Lake that
Wouldn't see it.
wouldn't see.
Yeah.
This other question I have is the thermal imaging camera.
Yep.
All of the incidents that the fire department responds to aren't fire incidents. So could the thermal imaging cameras be used to find humans?
Oh, yes, yeah, it's a heat source, basically. And you're looking at a color imaging. You'd like to see on the movies, you know, you'll see red, and red is the hotter areas. So yes, if we had missed a person, we have a missing person in the bush. What you have to bear in mind is, like, if we were looking during the daytime, when you've got the sun already beating on the ground, it's picking up the difference in temperatures.
Yeah.
But certainly sort of nighttime, once the ground temperature has dropped, you know, and again, as long as you haven't got trees and brush in the way, you know, it is potentially, it picks up difference in the heat sources.
Well, it has a certain range.
And it has a range. Yes, it does. Yeah.
I'm not only thinking about lost people in the bush, for other reasons, there could be a child lost inside a building or something.
Yes.
For some reason or other. We don't have any huge buildings in our township, but still, never say never.
That's right. And it's a tool in the box.
Okay, that's it.
And I tried to, there are better ones on the market, but, you know, it's balancing our need. And, you know, I'm very aware of the budget, you know, and I don't want to waste money. You know, but certainly I feel it would be very extremely useful to have one at each hall. But you know, I tried to pitch it at a reasonable cost, not a cost.
I went through exactly the same thing with the laser type ones,
Yes.
20 years ago when they were kind of state of the art.
Yeah.
Why do you need it? It's the same.
There's that one occasion, you know, when it really could play up trumps, you know.
They were really good for locating chimney fires.
Yes, yeah. They're very specific on the hotspot, you know, that, as I said, like you place the dot and that's the heat reading you're getting. Whereas with the thermal imaging, we'd actually get like the whole wall,
Yeah.
you know, instantly.
Good, I'm sold.
I am,
I was gonna have one question, just, we were talking about the signage and, I had asked that we look at replacing the township signs as you're coming in.
Mhm.
You know, we're gonna sport them, again, looking at those areas that you come into the township. Would that be somewhere where these signs could be erected along with it? Are we looking at another place or?
I'm in the hands of my colleague with Works Department as to the most appropriate locations. But my worry would be, I mean, yes, if we already have a site and that's where the township sign is, then why not put it there? On the other hand, does it become information overload? You know, I can't think of the location now, but there are three somewhere on one of our main entry roads. There are three signs together. If you're traveling at 80, you get a chance to read one.
Sure.
And once you've read it once, you just ignore it. Whereas if there was my personal view is, if there was a sign and a little further on, there's a different sign, you pick up each one. Whereas if we got 2, 3 signs, and these boards are not small, you know, do you want to see the township sign?
Right.
Do you want to see the, but my worry and concern would be information overload all in one location.
Yeah, I agree.
okay, thank you. I understand that with the cost recovery that you've been doing this year, there is money coming into the fire department that hasn't been there before. And I believe there were some other projects that you wanted to possibly put forward for a budget. Are they for this year's budget or are we going to table those?
No, I will happily withdraw. I understand the budget is extremely tight this year. Let's say, I know what you're talking about, obviously. What's that quaint expression? Pillow talk? No. Yeah, for the rest of the councillors around the table, I did originally put in the budget request an item that I was calling remote access equipment. We have had a number of incidents now in the year that I've been chief where with the use of a side-by-side machine, we could have accessed it better, quicker and more efficiently. However, when I pitch that, I'd like to win. And I understand the budget is extremely tight this year. I'm not going to pitch it to you now and lose. I will pitch it to you next year and win.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions with regards to the fire department at all? And capital?
I'm happy to stick around for a while in case something comes up later on and you want a question, but I do want to get off to the Whitney Hall in a moment and some work there, but
Okay,
I'm happy to stick around for the moment.
thank you. Back to you then, Jen.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next slide. This is the continuation of our capital. So we have more flammable resistant cabinets for the recreation facilities. So this is any building that is housing flammable items such as gas cans. They'll require them. So overall, you've been seeing it throughout the budget, but there's 5 in total that will need to be purchased. The Madawaska and Lyle Recreation Committee would like to request the approval of a purchase for an outdoor storage container. This would add additional storage capacity. That's about a $9,000 purchase anticipated. Madawaska and Lyle Recreation Committee have requested $5,000 in 2022 for history storyboards to be created and installed at the Tom and McMurray Park. They be created in a similar fashion and resemble the ones that are located at the JRV Park. Next, we have an automatic door opener for the Whitney Public Library. The installation will help fulfill our requirements under the Accessibility for Ontarians and Disabilities Act and would be funded from our accessibility reserve. And lastly, the library board is requesting a new larger township branded sign to be placed outside the Madawaska Library to inform and attract new patrons. Next slide.
Let me go back to the recreation and culture.
Sure.
I wasn't really going to mention it to the next council meeting, but seems appropriate to add it now. The Madawaska rink needs a new snow blower. There's been a lot of downtime with the one. I see it's not in the budget. Coincidentally, I was at a recreation meeting last night, and the recreation committee has agreed to finance the purchase of a new snow blower for the Madawaska rig up to $3,000.
Right.
It's not in the budget, so it doesn't
Right.
really, but
Good.
I asked for it in the budget, but it's not there.
Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank on it, to be honest.
Maybe I didn't pitch it to the right person.
Not listening.
Okay, so next slide has our transportation capital. There's a couple things I can mention here, that again, the flammable resistant cabinets. And we've also got the proposed purchase of new township entrance signs that Joan was referring to.
When
So,
we're on that, they just coincidentally within the last week or so, I come by the one on 523 and you can't even see it at night. It's under the snow, it's too low, the snowbanks are too high, and all of those signs are too black. And that one, you cannot see it at all.
Where is it, Joe? Sorry.
On 523, when you're coming into our township.
Okay.
Like just south of Cross Lake.
On Cross Lake Road?
okay, so I'll pass the rest of the slide to Brian Acme, the works superintendent, who will go over the road drainage improvements and the works grant in AC units.
So just a couple of notes, regarding the heating and AC unit at the garage. Currently, there's 2 wall electric heaters in each office, so the front office and the lunchroom. And there's an electric baseboard heater in the bathroom. The 2 wall units are old, they have been repaired in the past, but they produce more noise than heat. Secondly, the windows don't open in either office, so when the sunshine comes in, it gets very warm in there. And with the 4 bay garage and our diesel trucks, when we fire up our trucks, the diesel fumes are problematic. So ventilation's a problem. There is a small fan out in the garage, but it's, basically there are fumes trapped in the garage. So the fix that we had come up with would be a unit that was both a heater and an air conditioner for year round. So what they priced, I think, was an outdoor style unit that would provide air conditioning in the summer and heating in the winter. There were 2 units considered, one for each office. The other option is to tear down the partition wall between the 2 rooms, open it up, and 1 unit would heat that whole space. So I believe it's just the 1 unit that's priced in that. Jen, I'm not sure.
I believe it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it would take renovation to the office space, which would knock down that center. It's just a plywood and wood frame wall.
But in doing that, you lose 2 wall spaces for desks and filing cabinets and everything that you have against the walls. I think you may find that you're losing space by opening that up.
Yeah, my desk butts up against the 1 wall. The other wall, we have locker cabinets for the guys. So yeah, it's very tight on space. But again,
Would these be the split units that we're seeing everywhere, where you have just a unit inside and the main body outside?
I actually didn't see the quote. I believe it's like a heat pump that's outside. And it's when the heat and air conditioning is piped into the building.
Okay.
So the unit would sit outside, from what I understand.
Brian, how is that heated? How,
Oh, well, okay, there's the other,
just a question.
so there's electric heating in the back room where the water pump and water tank is a baseboard heating, electric. The washroom is baseboard electric. The office at the front has a baseboard electric heat, and then the 2 electric walls.
Which is expensive.
In the garage part itself, it's the propane 2 heaters
Propane, okay.
in the ceiling.
That was my question, is there a reason we don't use the propane, or
Well, no, there's no propane hookup in the office
there's
part.
no propane?
That is used to heat the garage part. And the problem that we're experiencing is we've had to repair the two heaters twice in the last 6 months or less than a year. And they're so old that we can't get replacement parts.
We
So
talked
out of
about.
the 4 tube heaters, we stole parts from the 4th one to put in the 3rd to repair it. So we're using 3 out of the 4 tube heaters, but we can't get parts. So down the road, if we stay in that facility, there's going to be a major cost of replacing those tube heaters.
Thank you.
Okay. As far as the road drainage goes, I've got 60,000 in there. We've got a lot of aging and actually culverts that have failed that need replacing. And I mean, this is nothing new. We've been trying to replace the culverts as fast as we can. So I'll start by basically saying that in Whitney, there's a couple of trouble spots. One is over here at Hay Creek Road, 2nd Avenue. I think the approach for that would be to, and it's just over 100 meters, 120 meter patch. It would be, we would excavate the asphalt, dig out the road base using our own equipment, backfill it to grade, and then I would recommend an asphalt patch to be put on top. That would patch that stretch of road till we can do the construction project, which I think is 2025. Right now, the shoulder of the road is that much higher than the wheel tracks, and that's the problem there. There's no road restriction on that road. The heavy loads, the wheel tracks are dished out. The shoulders over the years with winter sand get built up, and we punched holes in that with the steamer last week, and then we take our little snow plow and we push this water with the plow down to the drain to get it to drain. It's still draining uphill. So basically, I think a temporary patch on that, most of it would be, our works crew. It would just be a single lane operation, so we keep traffic to the mill open during that process. The only thing we wouldn't handle would be the actual paving of the path. The other problem with Hay Creek Road is down at Dave Bowers Road. There's a 24-inch culvert that crosses. It failed 1.5 years ago or more, and we basically have patched it and put cold mix in over the top. So it's got to be changed. So far this winter, I haven't seen any drainage issues there. Thankfully, I didn't get to it last fall to replace it, but it was on their list last fall. So that's the second issue there. We put in a new plastic pipe. The road surface there is that reclaimed asphalt, so patching that is not an issue like it would be up here. So that's the 2 on Hay Creek Road. If you go to Madawaska Street, there's 2 culverts. One is exposed, caught with a grader, needs replacing. There's another aged one that drains a creek down before the Chevron curve. It needs to be done. Old 127 at Poverty Lake, that culvert, there's a stream that comes out of the bush, and when we get heavy runoff in the spring, or even last year when it washed out, it was an extremely heavy rainfall from a thunderstorm. The culvert can't take it. It washes the road up. It washed out in 2013, 2017, 2019, and the culvert's still there. We've just been patch. So that's a definite replacement there. McGuey Road, the first 2 pipes need to be replaced. The one at the foot of the hill, there's a hole in the center of the road after heavy rainfall, so the pipe has failed. There's got to be a hole in it. Where else? Moonlight Bay, the hill at West Wells, the upper end of that culvert's exposed. It's above the road. The hill on Moonlight Bay from Gaffney needs to be ditched, and there's at least 2 culverts there that have to be replaced. Yeah, I could go to White's Road, needs work, just in terms of some more ditching and things. Gaffney Road down, there's that one curve, there's no ditch for the water to drain. The water sits on the inside of that curve. There is a culvert there, believe it or not. So, yeah, so we need to excavate that, burn back, ditch it, and put a new pipe in, and that will cure that problem. So my thought is, with the $60,000, we'll buy the culverts we'll need, we'll do the replacements on them. priority basis first, and then we'll just continue. I mean, I can go up North Mackenzie, I can go South Mackenzie, replace pipes. Just about every road we have, there are culverts that are 20+ years old, so. And then if you're looking at, our equipment, our grader is old, and this comes down to our asset management again. It's gonna need probably a higher level of repairs than normal, just because of its age and the work it does. It's an important machine. We've got our calcium tender out right now, so between that and if we purchased a new truck, the equipment is significant there. So I think I can keep our guys more than busy this summer just doing our in-house work. One of the things I found last year, we did so many capital projects and we're into so many different items that our work at our landfill sites has suffered. And after our recent inspection, we've got some remedial work to do this spring at our landfill, so I'd like to be able to spend more time, especially Madawaska being up on the hill. Given conditions, there's issues with falling cover. So I would like to concentrate more on that style of work.
Do you believe that 60,000 is enough as a capital cost for those culvert purchases? Or do you believe that that should be more money now?
Yeah, so last year Dave made a purchase of $25,000 in culverts. I've got I don't have any small culverts left. I have maybe four complete pipes that are 30 inches. So $25,000 for culverts goes a long way.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue how much they cost.
Yeah. Again, if I prioritize the ones that need immediate replacement, and then we just keep working on that. The gravel, well, we have, the Atcon pit, we have, our own pit at Ayland Lake if we need material for that and B&A. So again, just the cost of the asphalt here is maybe a little out of our hand.
Go ahead.
I agree with everything you said, Brian, except I question a little bit the practicality of putting the hard surface on Hay Creek Road only for 2 years. And in the wintertime, it really doesn't matter whether it's gravel or paved, because it's still covered for the most part. So it would be a bit of a dust inconvenience for 2 summers. Depending on what time of year you got to it this year, it may only be like 1 summer in 2024.
I mean, we could cold mix it. The only thing is, if the roads aren't frozen and we plow it, we might scrape some off. Yeah, but I just
a questioning, putting the money out and then in 2 years you rip it all.
Well, yes, I mean, if you want to go less than an asphalt surface, that's fine.
Sometimes road construction jobs remain unpaved for a full year.
Yeah.
And we're only talking about a short little section.
Yeah, it's just a major artery with heavy loads.
Yeah,
I just thought that the tougher surface might, but you're right, it's, it's just to fix it temporarily, so will be the big job.
Yeah.
So whatever surface, cold mat, cold patch, thin layers pack would work.
And we could maybe put a speed sign or the up and down Ripley Road surface sign there.
I think the whole road is in that condition right now.
Yeah.
Be one long sign.
But I mean, it would get it fixed on a temporary basis. There is one small culvert there. I think it's a 15-inch culvert, which we would replace at the same time. It drains the ditches across that little creek that's right there.
That's where the pylon is right now, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's all.
So I mean, there was that much water over the top of the road surface, so we had to drain what we could, and we did cold patch the hole. But of course, it's, as long as there's water there, it'll splash out and it'll redevelop. So
I would anticipate that when the road is rebuilt, it would be considerably higher than it is now, and that would eliminate the water on the road problem.
yeah, so
Might move it down to somebody's property, but
I had one quick look at the schematic for that, like all those driveways up to 3rd Avenue. I mean, it probably has room to come up. I'm not sure what their elevations were. I'd have to look at the plan, but that's the thing, that whole stretch right down to basically First Avenue, that whole shoulder there has got to be cut back, and it's like I say, it's that much higher. So most of the work will be done by our guys in the timely fashion at minimal cost.
Thank you, Brian.
Just as far as equipment goes, I put in the budget for a new laser level. Our old transit we're using it functions, we'll still use it, but the new laser levels, one man can operate it. And you know, that's like $1,500. And I'm also putting in for a plate packer, vibratory packer, so that when we're installing culverts, we have our own packer. We were using Dave's previously, or we rented a plate packer, so I have money in there for one of those. Again, the grader, we'll have to look and see. Hopefully it holds up for the summer for a grading season, but the age and the hours on the machine is certainly a target for our asset management.
You don't happen to know what year that grader is due?
I have it on my computer at work.
It'll probably be in the asset management plan. Anyway.
It is listed there, yeah.
That's all.
Who did you get that? Yeah, it's got like 12,000 hours on it, anyways, plus. And we bought it used.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
I think around 2010, something like that.
Yeah, but looking online at any used graders that are out there, it's just older or same condition of ours and extremely expensive. So a new one is expensive too. So I mean, we'll have to make a decision on how to replace it.
Was anything ever done with the brusher head?
Okay, so we've purchased the new hydraulic pump for it.
Okay.
I'll have to call his name is Crevoy to come up and they'll install it, and we want Top Lift to come up and set up the pressures on the excavator so that when it's put back together, it's the spec. We tried to get repairs on that brusher head done under warranty, and it didn't fly. So we purchased the pump, and now sometimes early spring we can do brushing, but with the amount of snow banks and snow depths and things, we're not going to get any brushing done early this spring, so it would be summer to fall. But yeah, we have the replacement parts. Okay. It's just to get the guys up and set up the machine and make sure that everything. Yeah.
Talk is going to take a long time to get anyways.
Yeah, so we did okay. Order it, and it's in place. So
beautiful.
Yeah, so that's the basis of the road drainage improvements right now. The only other issue would be that dry fire hydrant at Hay Lake. I think the guys can come up with a low-cost solution to pin it underwater. It's just a matter of some kind of changing the way it's fastened to the lake bed so it doesn't pop out of the thing.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Jen.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So when we look back at all our capital slides, we have a total of $270,500 for capital spending. I'm not sure if anybody has any other questions about capital before we move on.
Can I ask how much is in reserve for capital usage if needed?
Total reserves at this point are 2.7. That's for all reserve and reserve fund accounts, 2.7 million.
So we haven't allocated pockets, it's just a general amount.
It is allocated into pockets, yes. We have multiple reserve accounts, but total balances are at 2.7 million.
Okay, I'm just thinking if we needed to pull on those for something for works, then we have it.
Correct, yeah. that's
Okay, thank you.
discussion that could be had, yeah. Okay, so our next slide goes into transfers to reserve and reserve funds for the 2023 budget. So starting with general government, a transfer to the election reserve to fund the 2026 election, potential cost of 15,000, so that could divide that up over the years to come up to that amount. The next, the Ministry of Natural Resource and Forestry Fire Agreement provides for $20,000 per year to the municipality. And it's proposed that this revenue be transferred to reserves for future fire department capital needs. This has been done in the past with other councils. The Northern Ontario Resource Development Support Fund will be transferred to the Roads Reserve for the future reconstruction of Hay Creek Road. In addition to the NORDS grant, it's proposed that the OSIF annual funding be moved to the Roads Reserve for 2025 reconstruction of Hay Creek Road as well. So
How much is Hay Creek Road gonna cost it? Oh,
$750,000 at the bottom end. Yeah, and I
So,
believe that was estimated based on a single lift of asphalt. And in all fairness, anything less than a double is going to be wheel tracked in 5 years. So, and in an ideal world, you'd go triple down there. So, yeah, we're at $750,000, I believe, was the project estimate when they had the engineers do the design work a year ago.
Now, Jen brought up a point about the NORDS funding, that it might be able to be used to complete that road path I was talking.
Yes,
So that would be separate from the 60,000 drainage, if we use the NORDS funding to do that.
yeah. So if council does commit to saving the OSIF funding for the years 2023 to 2025, this would provide an additional 470,000 towards that project. So in total, we would have our OSIF funding at 470,000, the NORDS funding at 473,000. So we were roughly around 943,000 towards that project, which is a really good chunk, which won't leave taxpayers with a huge tax rate increase in 2025 to help cover that project.
I think that's great money.
Yeah, well done.
So moving on, the next transfer is $25,000 to reserves for future fleet and equipment. This represents council's commitment to our capital reinvestment. This was presented through the capital reinvestment policy that was passed in October of 2021. I do have those policies with me if anybody'd like to take a look at them, but they were also provided in the council orientation package as well. Moving down under health, we received $3,500 per year from the Ontario Air Ambulance Corporation. We've been putting this into reserves to pay the helipad located in Whitney. The helipad reserve balance after this transfer would be $27,500. In the past, it's been thought that this project would be completed when paving crews were in town for other projects to help keep the costs low. When Dave was here, I believe he had thought that paving could come in at around 25,000. So we've got enough after this transfer in the reserve to cover that. Now times have changed, so we have not went out to get that quote yet until that project will be considered.
If the paving could be held off for a couple of years, we could combine it with the contract here on Hay Creek Road, it would probably be the time that we would get the absolute best place for it.
Yeah,
Now, because it's aviation oriented, it falls under federal legislation, so the plan for that paving of that helipad would have to be, you know, to the aviation guidelines, so it would take a bit of investigation to make sure that we did it properly. It was a better cost estimate, so.
right.
Right now, it's functional, there is a cement pad, and there's the metal reflective cones with the solar lights. You can't replace them, so in the future, it'll go with probably those red style aviation lights like they have at the hospital in Barry's Bay, or what you see at other helipads. So some of that equipment is outdated, so when we redo that, maybe some of those reflectors and lights would have to be changed as part of the cost.
Just a quick question, is that inspected by somebody on a yearly basis? I know at the hospital we have.
Yeah, so I think the Orange agreement, I haven't looked at it in a while, it's 2 years, every 2 years, or is it every 3? And yes, Orange has staff that comes out and does inspection. And then the maintenance plan that goes with that, I mean, they're, you know, snow depth levels that,
Yeah.
that kick in when we have to plow it. And yeah, there are, you know, site conditions that have to be upheld. We have a windsock up there that we replaced at our cost, so that kind of, but yes, the inspection.
Mayor Valley has a question. for us.
Just a question, Brian, and you're saying that we have an agreement with Orange on this, and then we are committed to, paving this?
No,
Or-
that's a maintenance agreement for the helipad.
Yeah.
So like we cut the grass and we plow the snow, do snow removal. And we maintain the, like I say, the reflectors and the solar light we purchase, you know. So that forms the basis of the maintenance agreement. The
Yeah.
property it's on, the township does not own. Apparently it's school property. That's the other fact.
Well, the reason I'm asking about an agreement is that this goes back a few years. But back in the day, when the township agreed to plow that property, it was never the understanding that we would do the paving of that property. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not our property. We don't own it.
So why are we
we-
paving? Are we required to pave it? I'm not trying to be a Scrooge here. I'm just trying to figure out.
I believe Dave had decided that it would be much easier for maintenance purposes that if it was paved.
We're dealing with grass and sod, so sometimes early season or late season, if we have to plow it, sometimes we dig up some sod and stuff. So any sand or stones or dirt, any debris that's around that helipad will be picked up by the rotors on the chopper and made airborne, which could cause serious problems. So they like to see their helipads paved.
Further to Mayor LaValle's point, I think she has a great point. Maybe it's not our responsibility to do it. Maybe it's Air Orange's responsibility. to do it. Or the federal
Exactly.
government, if they're the ones that are inspecting, it's probably not ours, because
Exactly.
it's not our property.
Yeah.
Or
It's
the
not our
health,
uniform.
or the health unit.
All we're doing is plowing
Maintaining
snow
it.
off.
But all right, I would assume that it was put there and an agreement was made. That would have to be looked at, but why do we have it other than for our community use?
Well, I'm going, and to your point comes clear, I'm going back a long time
Yeah.
here. But when the medical center and library was built, it was felt that yes, a helipad would be quite helpful. And then, and I agree, we need the helipad. I'm with Councillor Florin, and I think that it's not, maybe not our responsibility, and maybe someone else would pave it if that's what we need, Brian. I understand that we agreed to look after the grass and plow it, that's all.
I would question that need it though, when you stop and look at where Orange does land, it will land almost right at the trauma site if you're looking at vehicle, right? If they can manage to land, they'll do it. They don't particularly need a helipad. And even in this case, you would have to have an ambulance
That's
bring
right.
the person wherever they are to the helipad. So I would question whether or not there was actually a need for it. How often has it ever been used? And,
Once that I'm aware of.
you know, so.
It has been used for, there's been a couple of occasions where they brought the chopper in to airlift patients out. 2013, during the flood emergency, the Minister of Public Safety flew in via helicopter to that.
That's probably a good reason not to have it.
That's a good reason for them to pave it.
Now, in Madawaska, several years back, we had a bushfire at Green Lake
Mhm.
that they brought the water bombers in for, and their ground crews would meet at the ball diamond at the M&L Hall, and they would drop their chopper inside the ball diamond, and they would change out the crews.
Mhm.
It's a fenced area, it's clean, they don't have to worry about debris, it's secure, so I can see why they chose to do that. So that's been the only use I have seen. I know, years ago, we had one injury on South Mackenzie and they dropped the chopper on Highway 127 at the south entrance. So it's up to the pilot whether he lands there or not, so it's a pilot's.
Well, the
decision.
other thing that came into play was it also, when it started out, it all sounded really good and very helpful, and yes, maybe it's done what it's supposed to do. But Councilor Craig has a really good point that if there's not an ambulance available, that helicopter can't take anyone, because it's got to be an ambulance comes up and puts them on
Mhm.
the helicopter. So it's not like the medical center is open 24/7 to try to even arrange that. And the whole intent is that if somebody was at the medical center, it needed to be set out immediately, then they could call the orange helicopter. I'm just giving you some history.
And I think, you know, things have changed, right?
It was a good idea or a good thought.
We didn't have,
And
yeah.
Practicality, it's trying out.
It still is a good idea, I believe, but it may be that we get funding from District of Nipissing for that health centre and the medical profession there. Maybe they deem it necessary to have a helipad there, in which case maybe the funding can come down from Nipissing for that.
Well, I'm not even going to touch that right now. Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. It's kind of a bit of a sore point with me.
Yes.
It's, the helipad's functional.
I think
Yeah.
Dave wanted it asphalted for ease of clearing the snow. I think that's what he said. It takes longer to clear the snow because it's not asphalted.
Until
that's
it
our-
freezes, it
Yeah.
can be difficult, but you have to be careful. But we've been maintaining it and it's functional as it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with all that said, we can anticipate that this money would still be sitting in reserves until that decision is made. Staff could pursue also the agreement and see if anything else could come of this with funding from other sources to do the paving. So under planning, it's proposed that a $15,000 reserve transfer be made to support the review and amendment to the zoning bylaw in 2024. Municipalities are required to update their zoning bylaws within 1 year of the approval of the official plan amendment. So we expect a total cost of $30,000. This would help with that, if we could put half away for next year. Next slide. So this details our transfers from reserves into the budget. So we have $18,000 to fund the asset management plan completion. Transfer for the town suite accounting software at $72,000. $10,500 for office window replacement. Moving on, our largest transfer will be the $219,807. This is in order to mitigate a large tax rate increase. It's proposed that this money come from our tax stabilization fund within the general reserve. It would be utilized to fund the 2023 budget. So without this transfer, we would be looking at approximate 14% tax increase in order to fund the budget. So we do propose that we use that tax stabilization fund. Under protection, we have a $22,000 reserve transfer to fund the fire department equipment purchases. Again, with the caveat that we would hope to pay that back to that same reserve. $60,000 from the gas tax fund for the road drainage project. $5,000 carry through from 2022 for the storyboards at Tom and McMurray Park. The Madawaska Community Center complex interior painting at $13,500. This would come from the rec facility reserve. And lastly, $7,200 from the accessibility reserve for the automatic door opener at the Whitney Library. So when we net out our transfers to and from reserves, we see a drawdown of $128,114 from the total reserve balance of $2.7 million. Next slide. So now we'll take a look at the current value property assessment changes year over year. The township has seen a $513,000 increase in property assessed values over 2022. The increased assessment can be attributed to building permit construction activities and MPAC submitted assessment changes. These are changes that are missed or not yet captured from prior years through MPAC. The increase cannot be attributed to the provincial reassessment. So the province has announced that the reassessment for 2023 tax year would be postponed. Property taxes for this taxation will continue to be based on a January 1st, 2016 valuation date. There's still no sign from the province as to what they're going to be doing with that reassessment. I think most municipalities are looking for that reassessment so that we can, see some growth within the communities. The next slide is our assessment distribution. So this is our 2023 assessment report for South Algonquin from the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation website. So it gives us a breakdown by property class with the number of properties in each class and the assessment values for those classes. Our largest tax class continues to be the residential class with just over $249 million or 89% of our total assessed values. Next slide. Okay, so how do taxes work? Council determines the municipal portion of the residential rate and the province sets the education portion of the total tax rate. All other property tax class rates are determined as a ratio to the residential rate. So just to give an example, the managed forest class is 25% of our residential tax rate. Next slide. Okay, so this slide displays the impact of a 5% municipal tax rate increase, as well as the impact or lack of impact from the provincial education tax rate. So a property with an assessed value of $150,000 will see a $66 increase over 2022, an $86 increase for a $200,000 property. The province has kept the education tax rate the same as last year, so we'll see no increase there. But one of the things I'd just like to stress about this slide is that so when we say 5% residential tax rates, we are talking 5% of 0.008672668. So when we do that, we get a number of 0.0004, which we add to the 2022 tax rate to come up with our 2023 tax rate of 0.00910631. So I'm hoping that cleared it up for everyone. So essentially, 5% sounds like a very big number, and I think we picture 5.00 something, but really in actuality, it's 5% of 0.008. And when we take that difference, we add that to become our 2023 proposed tax rate.
Now, this is on residential. Is there
Correct.
something, and I didn't see it for business or?
Yeah, so just I just did a quick calculation for commercial. So when we think about a $200,000 commercial property at the new tax rate, it's at a $206 increase over 2022. I did not do an industrial tax rate comparison, but if you need, I could definitely do one for you. Yeah.
I'd just like to make a comment about managed forest, that it's a built-in tax loophole that the province has put in place so that large landmass owners can avoid paying taxes.
Yeah, at a residential rate, yeah.
It's a scam, in my opinion.
I think in the north, it means more, where I think maybe part of the process in the cities, that means more to them, that they have some managed forest, some greenery available. Well, that benefit to keep that greenery within the city limits would be very beneficial. Here we have so much greenery that we don't really see that benefit. However, it is set by the province that they are allowed this program, so we must abide by it.
You gotta do a lot of paperwork for it, so.
Yeah, right, but when you're talking, you're gonna save $500,000 in taxes. You know, you're only paying 25 cents on the dollar. I actually talked to one of the foresters as he was going into this bush to assess it. And I said, it's more a mismanaged forest than a managed forest, and he chuckled and said, yeah, you're right.
Yes. I know.
It's a bit of a sore point in our township. because
Yes.
there's one major landowner with 10,000 acres.
Okay,
It's on hot seat already this year.
I don't feel sorry for Alan.
Okay, so our next slide and last slide is funding the budget. So the taxation levy required to fund the 2023 budget is $2,625,198. A 5% property tax rate increase will provide the required revenue to bring a balanced budget to the table. So in 2021, council passed a budget and financial control policy. So this would have been provided in the council orientation package as well, but I do have a copy here. The province or the policy guides staff in the creation of the annual operating and capital budgets. So section 39 of the policy states that an annual tax increase may range between 75% and 125% of the CPI rate of 2022, which is 7.6%. So this means that the acceptable tax range would be equal to 5.7 to 9.5% increase. So at 5%, we're below this threshold allowance. Staff does appreciate that everything in the lives of our residents is costing more. We're sympathetic to how this budget may seem, you know, as yet another increase to be absorbed by our households across the township. But to this end, I just want to ensure that staff were exceedingly thorough in the examination and critical review of the proposed budget. So that concludes my presentation. Brian, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Just a couple of quick comments. Jen, you've got numbers in front of you, I don't. Can you advise me, when you and I went through and did final cuts, as our fire chief noticed, we did some adjustments to staff budgets brought into us. How much did we cut out of that? It was 300 and what?
387,000.
So there's $387,000 that were in the ask from staff before Jen and I cut it down. So before we even brought it to council, just to give you some idea of the effort, of level of effort that had to go in to getting to where we're at. To speak to some of the other rates that are out there, I've reached out to a number of my colleagues who have either already established their 2023 budgets or are in process with councils. And I'll just give you a quick overview of a couple of those that I'm hearing, because inflation has really affected everybody very significantly. And to add on top of the inflationary impacts that we had, we also had one property in town that a direct result of reassessment on that property cost us $50,000 in tax dollars. So that's how the reassessment can really affect the arbitration process can affect us. And then last year, of course, we all know we did some significant adjustments as a result of bringing on the building official as a permanent full-time employee. We're also feeling the impacts of that on top of the inflationary impacts. As an example, Calendar, their budget has been set. It's at 7.39% that they've increased theirs. They've also transferred $200,000 as a tax stabilization out of reserves in order to get there. The city of Toronto, although not comparable, they had 5.5% increase, and in doing so, they did a 5% reduction in level of service as well. Nipissing currently is at 6%. They're still reviewing budgets. They haven't set the final budget, but my colleague there tells me 6% is where they're landing at this very moment. North Bay was originally presented at 5.77%. They cut a bunch of projects and pulled $1 million from reserves and got it down to 3.2 million, 3.2%. The county of Renfrew, most of the municipalities neighbors to us, Barry's Bay, they're all lower tier municipalities. And they have the upper tier who also provide services. So some of the services we provide directly or indirectly through District of Nipissing, those services that we're providing are provided by the county of Renfrew and the lower tier. So the county of Renfrew by themselves have put a 2.5% increase on the lower tier levy. And then if you take the lower tier levy, the town of Renfrew has 3.99%, as well as the 2.5 at the county level. The township of Bonacieux Valley, although they've not been through their process, staff are bringing a 9% proposal to council, along with a 2.5% levy at the county level. I don't know that that's where that one will stay. The town of Arnprior had probably 3 or 4% minimum growth as a direct result of reassessment because they've got so much construction going on. They absorbed that amount along with a 3% increase. So they're probably sitting around 6 or 7% in their levy increase. It may even be higher. I know when I was there, that would have probably equated to closer to 11%. And then on top of that, they've got the county's 2.5% levy increase. The regional water did an 8.99% levy increase. Now, 4% of that was operations and just under 5, just over 4 was operations and just under 5 was capital. But they also have a 2.5% adjustment at the county level on that. So that's just to give you a bit of a picture of the challenges that not just we're facing. Everybody in this is facing as a direct result of supply chain issues that are compounding the cost of everything at the store that we're buying, fuel costs which are exponentially higher than we can handle, and the government's adding more tax on them, so we'll be happy to see that that's going back up again. I don't know what the solution to this problem is, but we certainly tried to pare down the budget as significantly as we possibly could at a staff level before we would even present it to council for any further consideration.
Councillor.
I certainly appreciate the work of staff to cut the budget by what, 300 and some $1,000, because that would have been a huge tax increase. The only alternative, I don't want to see the level of service go down. So the only other alternative is to draw more money from reserves. But then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot down the road for major purposes. And as the old guy sitting around the table, the best time to have a tax increase is in your first term of council, the first year of your term of council. So that you can do some additional spending in the last year of your term.
So, and just to highlight on that, I think one of the things that's going to have a significant impact, and I really wish that we had that delivered before today, is our capital plan with the financial plan for it. So we have to realize that we have a lot of assets, a lot of roads. Our road needs study, I think, said we had over $3 million in roads that need work today. So this will bring us the financial plan that also goes with how do we replace our roads. Our grader, as Brian's saying, may or may not make it through the year. We've got a dump truck, our garbage truck, which is of the same vintage as the plow truck that we are trying to replace right now. We're having issues with it. So our repair budgets are continually climbing to keep these pieces of equipment operating. Thankfully, we've got guys that for the most part can do a lot of the wrenching on the equipment ourselves. So we're buying the parts and they're putting them on. But there are certain things that we do have to go to the experts and pay the garage rates. And those are going through the roof as well, because everything's just climbing exponentially.
Does anyone of council have any other questions for Jen here or for Brian?
I have a few. Let's see. I'll figure it out in my head, and then next year I'll be asking something more. But I guess I mean, obviously, we have an operating budget, which is the general operation of the township and its employees. And within that, is there, I guess, line items for, vehicle repairs, for, whatever. So what you're asking from a capital is over and above what would be required. So the fact that you've already went through your operating budget and found 300,000, there isn't much more, I would assume, or there probably always is, where you could pull some more from. You know.
Yeah, that's correct. So we did review all of our line items, line by line. We've taken some, there was very few places that we could bring that down.
Right.
The operating expenses are what we call keep our lights on.
Sure.
So we don't anticipate these costs for operating to go down. If anything, they're going to only increase for next year. So if we don't try to get ahead of it with our tax rate at this point, we're always going to be playing this catch up and pulling from reserves in order to just keep the lights on.
Until the reserves are out.
Exactly. That's right.
So, and then I guess that was my next sort of question in my head, so. When you're looking at capital, that money is coming from these areas which you're getting the grants from, it's not touching the reserves.
For the most part, so some of the capital expenditures which are listed in here do show where the funding is coming from. For instance, the Town Suite software, that's coming from a modernization efficiency grant that has been put to our reserves. So this is something that we've agreed upon in prior years to do this project, that specific one. Something like the generator for the township office. That's coming from municipal contribution, meaning through the tax rate system. So that there are a couple of things that in our capital that are municipally funded, but for the most part, it is all coming through from grants or prior grants that are now sitting in reserve.
So that reserve of 2.7 is sort of a fluid reserve, it's not really, this is how much we have. Some of the grants that have gone in there is generating a bit of it still is dog-eared.
Correct.
Right?
That's exactly
So
right.
it's
Yeah.
not really, oh, we have 2.7 million that we can use at our disposal.
That's right.
No, there are certain specific things.
Right.
Like gas tax doesn't mean.
Yeah, for infrastructure.
You can't move them to somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of wiggle room within the budget to pull items out. Our options are to draw down the reserve in order to bring down this tax rate increase.
So then my next question then is that, you know, with equipment needing to be replaced, would that come directly out of the reserves then? So the $500,000 for this plow truck that we've just put a tender out for, that would come out of the 2.7?
No.
It could, if that's how council determines, we could potentially go to the banks and borrow the
Yeah,
funding
fine.
to pay it back.
Okay.
But that would be a council decision at that point.
Greeters all paid separate, right? Everything's.
One of the things we had looked at doing was putting some money towards the plow truck this year,
Right.
but that got axed in the 300,000+ that we took out. Because we just realized that there's just it's so much exponential cost this year that we just can't absorb it all in 1 year. And so we said, we'll look at that and see how we manage that next year. One of the things we did with the policy for reserve and reserve funds, if you take a look at that, it tells you kind of what money is in what reserves for what specifically. But we also said where we're going to take money out of reserves, we're going to charge ourselves an interest rate for that borrowing at a rate that's reasonable below what we would pay. So if we go to the bank today, bank mortgage rates are at 6.9% is the given rate right now as of yesterday. So if you're getting paying 6.9 on a mortgage, a vehicle loan may be even higher than that. We've got preferential borrowing at the bank based on an agreement we have with the bank with preferential interest rates at the bank. As she indicated, we're well over 4% right now on our interest rates on our deposits. So we don't necessarily borrow at what I would borrow at. But that said, if we can take the money out of reserves and pay ourselves back, to me, that makes more sense than paying the interest to the bank. So that's why when we do these transactions, we're pulling out a reserve. Next year, if we're going to be putting back, we take 100 out this year, we might be actually putting back 110 because we're paying ourselves an interest rate on it.
There was a construction job budgeted for a few years ago on a Major Lake Road, and it was put off and put off and put off, I think 3 or 4 years in a row, maybe longer than that, 5 or 6 years. And it's still not in the budget. But, and, you know, as far as, well, it was paid for in like 2016 dollars, so it would be lacking for sure now. The road, it's almost to the point where there's more patch, well, it is to the point where there's more patch on the section of road than there is asphalt. There's 2 sections like that. One of them is within that park boundary, so I realize the legitimate reason for holding off on that one, because it maybe is not our job to do. But the other one certainly is our job to do. It's not in the park boundary and it's in terrible condition. It's worse than Hay Creek Road. And there's what? 500 tons a day over that road? Probably more than there is here on Hay Creek Road. I just don't understand why it's not in the budget.
So I think when we receive our asset management plan, that's to come to us in April, that we are going to be seeing a lot of places that have been perhaps neglected, for lack of a better word. And what that plan is going to do for us is detail out, you know, what is priority and how will we fund it. So that will be a big meeting when we have that presentation come from Dylan.
The problem is that we've had asset management plans before, and I don't have a lot of faith in the reality of them. Sometimes it's beyond comprehension how they assess the condition of a road or the need to rebuild it. It just, like, in the past, they haven't made much sense. I hope this one's different. It's a different consulting firm. Maybe it'll be better. But that, my point is that road essentially is already paid for. It's in the budget. I know it's counted in our reserve, but it's been allocated for that construction.
All right, yeah, so I have no note anywhere about that particular project within the reserves. That doesn't mean that it isn't somewhere noted, but I can tell you that I've never seen it.
It was put in the budget, and then it was at the end of the year when the job wasn't done, it was next year transferred to reserves.
Do we have an idea of year?
It's dragged on forever. It's been at least 5 years now that it's been put off.
And maybe, you know, if there are a couple of little projects like that, I mean, we've suggested that the OSIP funding be directed back into reserve for future reconstruction of Hay Creek Road. I mean, certainly there is some money there in that OSIP grant. The Nord's funding that's available that's specific to agriculture and mining from the Ministry of Mines. That money, we have to actually tell them where we're planning to spend it and get the approvals on. So that money, the allocations, that's what we've told them that money for the last couple of years is going towards Hay Creek. That being said, we may find that we may ask for changes to that, or we can use some of the old OCIF fund, the OCIF funding that we've got, and direct it towards projects. If there's something that council feels imminently required to be done. We do have that money that rather than transferring it into the reserve, could be utilized to fill in some of those needs. And they would meet, that the projects would meet the requirements of funding agency.
This section of road on Beaver Lake Road would be the northernmost, like 1.2 to 1.3 kilometers that we maintain. So it's directly south of the Macaulay Lake Road.
And I guess I have one more question, is what has our rate increase been over, say, the last 5 years? Have we done any major ones?
No, so last 5 years, it's been 1%. I believe it was 2018 that had a 2% increase. So, since I've been here with the township, this certainly would be the largest increase.
And what would it have to be if we didn't use that 200,000 from the reserve?
You'd be looking at about a 14% increase.
Really, from that?
So 1% increase gives the township $25,000. It's really not that much, when we look at the context of the expenses of everything. So yeah, $200,000 is 8%.
One truck's $350,000.
When are MPAC, or do we know when MPAC are going to do their reassessments? Because I think that's going to make quite a lot of difference to our tax base.
Yes, it very well could, because we're based at 2016 at this point. Really, anything is going to be a big jump up from that, depending on what year they decide to set at that reassessment at. We're not really too sure what the plan will be. There's really been nothing come out of the province to tell us.
That doesn't necessarily give us more
No,
taxes, though. It just gives us a better tax rate.
that's correct. So the one thing that, you know, there's a bit of a fallacy out there that just because assessment went up, that all of a sudden my taxes are going up. The reality is when MPAC does these significant adjustment that's going to be required to bring us to current value assessment, because we all know our homes are undervalued for what we can sell them in today's market conditions. What it does is it redistributes the assessment. So mine went up 25,000, but Jennifer's went up 150. So Jennifer's proportionate share of the budget at the end of the day is going to become more than mine. But I always look at the levy. How much additional money are we needing to raise? The $125,000 this year. That's where we look at. We look at the levy because the tax rate is directly proportional to the levy requirement and your total assessment. So potentially, if you had a dramatic increase in your assessment, your tax rate potentially could go down, although you are collecting more money than you were in the previous year. And the allocation of that money won't necessarily be the same property by property, because we don't all go up at the same rate. Some may go down, some may go way up. So, you know, the wealth gets quote redistributed in that process.
Where we do gain is new products.
That's right. Every permit that we issue, one of the things that we're, as staff, we're doing is we're reassessing all of our permits and our fees and our structures for this year. And during this year, we are going to be bringing to council some proposals to make adjustments to our fee schedules. But we haven't considered those in the budget because we don't know what those are going to be yet. And I'd rather have those extra $20 at the end of the year to put back into the reserve than to plan for them now and find out that we didn't get what we thought and we run up short.
So the revenue required would be 125, and then the other is coming from the tax rate increase of 125.
So that 125,000 represents what is required beyond the revenue that we're receiving.
Right.
So if we did no tax rate increase, we would be $125,000 short for this budget. At $25,000 at 1%, it quickly adds up to 5%. $125,000 is somewhat of a drop in the hat on a $4 million budget. But yes, It equals 5%.
So what you were saying was that the 5% was okay with you, right?
As a politician, yeah,
Yes.
if we're gonna have an increase, let's have it now, rather than 3 years from now.
But not up any higher than that 5%.
No, I don't like, people are suffering, like, some people are making a choice whether to pay their taxes or not,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm a homeowner and I'm, operating at a deficit now, you know, I can put my taxes off for 3 years before there's any,
Yes.
anything that's gonna happen to me about it, so, you know, some people are desperate.
And I mean, technically, they changed the rules. We can deal with tax sales now after 2 years. But we haven't changed our policies internal, work with our residents to try and mitigate that, because the last thing we want is somebody to have to give up their home. But you're right, Joe, people today are choosing between eating and keeping the lights on in their homes. And that's unfortunately a reality of where society has come in the last 10 years. You're in a place where you almost need two people to be working to be able to make ends meet. And for those that are on a fixed income, can't go and get a second job, you know, everybody's on a fixed income because if you work 40 hours, you work 40 hours. But for those that can go and get an extra part-time job or something versus somebody that's unable to do that, it's tough. It really is.
And we have a high proportion of our tax base that is on fixed income, they're older retired people.
Yeah, now the one thing that I can say is that the tax rate, if you look at the tax rates with a lot of the municipalities that have an upper and lower tier, their lower tier rates are higher than our rate. And they still have an upper tier rate to be added to that. So for our area, based on where we are, things, the cost of living here from a tax perspective is still reasonable by comparison to a lot of other places in the area.
It certainly is, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Me too.
Don't disagree, Joe.
Mela Valley, you have something to
Well,
add?
I'm sorry I had to step out for a minute, but I think that Brian and Jennifer and I sat down, and looked at this for 3 hours the other day. And as we went through it, and we went through pretty much, I asked questions line by line by line, as you can see. I can't see where there's room to really cut anything. However, having said that, what I was saying, and Brian and Jennifer knew this, is that, you know, the average person that I talk to in Whitney gets their tax bill. And all they look at is the bottom line, is, well, my tax last year only increased by $5. And we can try to explain levy and what other townships are doing, but it doesn't mean a hill of beans to them. It's what they feel is coming out of their pocket. So I guess I tried to simplify it in terms of it, you know, if my house is worth $150,000, then with this, I'm paying $66 increase, which is a fair bit over last year. Because last year was what, 1%, 1.something%, Jennifer?
1%.
Yeah. So the reality of it is, if, you know, we as a council, we can send this back and say, cut more. People aren't going to be happy, and we need to do roads and we need to do fire things. The things have to be done. If you can see in your law, there's no money in here to do the study, housing study, not there. What that means, we don't know yet, but I'm saying it's not even in the budget. So, you know, I want to thank Brian and Jennifer and all the departments that put in and worked hard on this. It's been a lot of work. And, you know, I'm not telling council what to do, but I really don't know where we're going to cut with this and how we would do that. However, I think that when the tax bills goes out, we have to explain what this is about. I think something to simplify it in my language and in my words anyway, well, would be very, very, very helpful, because Jennifer, you live and eat and breathe these numbers, and thank you, but
Yeah.
and I wouldn't want your job, But, you know, at the end of the day, we're the ones that have to go out and sell this.
Yeah, and you know, to further that, if you have residents that have questions, I encourage you to send them to staff. You know, we are here and
Mhm.
open to anybody's questions as much as we can to answer them. So definitely, if you're having these questions come to you at final tax time, yeah, send them to the office, tell them to call. We're always available,
Oh,
email.
yeah, we'll have you on speed dial.
Yeah,
I have a question. You chose to pull some X out of the stabilization fund.
right.
How did you come about that?
So we used our policy to guide our tax rate increase that council passed in 2021. And again, it gave us that range between 5.7 and 9.5%. That's based upon the CPI rate in July, 7.6. So we could take 75% of that CPI rate up to 125% as an acceptable range for increase. So at 5%, we're actually coming in a little bit lower than that policy guides us to, as it would have been a 5.7% increase that would have been the minimum. And so these policies were brought into place to help guide staff through the process so that the actual budgeting process through council was not near as tedious as it once was. So this was it was basically guided through these policies.
My thoughts are, is we take just a tiny smidge more and make it a 4-point-something increase rather than the solid 5.
Mhm.
And I think that may be a little bit more acceptable as we show it to our people. What does council think about that? If it becomes 4.8 or 4.9 even, just something that is in the 4s and not 5. It's a marketing ploy, isn't it? The 4.99 deal or the 3.99 deal is only a cent difference, but we actually look at it, and when you put a property price up for a house, you always drop it $5,000 to get it within a different bracket. And I'm just wondering whether or not by taking a very small amount more, we could make this a 4.8% rise.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly could do that. If it's,
And certainly, you know, if we wanted to just take a, you know, pay now or pay later. Something like the Healy pad is 3,500, we're putting into a reserve. It's not, it's only going to a reserve. If we took that out, that, you know, gives us 1/10 of the percentage point that brings us down a little bit. The election is another $3,750. We're gonna pay the $15,000 for our next election if we have one anyway. We're gonna have to add these numbers back in potentially in the future. The election, definitely, the Healy pad is up in the air. You know, those are two areas where you'd quickly pull $7,000. And with 25,000 being a full percentage point, you get your 0.5% or so and get you down under 5 if that's what you're looking for.
It's just aesthetically, obviously, we're going to newsletter people and say, what's your taxes gone up by? I think 4-point-something is better than saying 5.
Another option is to do a little larger drawdown on the tax stabilization fund this year. And that would bring you down under, but that's not helping either. So, I mean, there's really not a lot here to just take the money out. The Healy pad would be one that I could say, yeah, without doubt that may never cost me any more money anyway. But that's only 3,500. So I think we're looking for nickels and dimes in a budget of over $4 million.
I know, and the actual amount of money is very minimal. It's aesthetically what our residents see.
Well, I think they're going to say, look at this new council, what they did, came in with a 5% increase when it was 1 last year. That's basically what they're going to say.
I think everybody's anticipating it though, really.
Yeah.
If you just look at what's happened over the last couple of years, I think there's anticipation that that's going to happen.
I think anybody that goes to the grocery store today understands that everything has gone up.
I just know that you know, and again, it's been quite a few years that when looking at the hospital budget, if there was money, you know, sort of not spent, it always went back into the reserve, and I didn't see that here. So I assumed that all was spent and not being transferred back into.
No, you transferred a bunch back in.
Yeah, but that was allocated, it wasn't from operating, it was from, was it?
Yeah, there was money that was budgeted for and not spent.
Okay. All right, I didn't comprehend that then. when
And I
looked
think
at the
that
numbers.
may happen again this year with the fuel costs. And I'm not suggesting at all that we lower the budget for fuel costs. But my fuel costs have gone down 25% since November, December. The fuel prices have dropped significantly.
Okay, I didn't understand that then or see that in there, so I'm glad you said that, Joe, makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, just because it's budgeted doesn't mean that that's what we're actually going to spend. That means what we can spend. Sometimes, like with fuel, price go up and down. They may go up, that's 25% next week. I don't know.
Yeah, which then would cause the reverse problem.
Yes. Yeah, and at the same token, we may go over.
Right,
And if that happens, they pull money from reserve to pay for that.
right. But going back to what Mayor LaValle is saying, where is that money going to come from house or for housing project? Right, like that's.
Yeah, we're hoping to get money and get some
And if
things
not,
out of
then
these
you're going
apps.
to
We didn't put it in the
reserves.
budget, but if we don't, we have to do a housing study.
Right,
And I think that the housing study, I think the intent, at least at my initial blush, was that that was gonna have to be something that would have to. If we didn't have others helping us, we were gonna have to take it from reserves, and even if we have people taking it, helping us with it. It's something that if it's a priority of council, we're gonna have to plan for it out of the reserve transfer at the time that we approve that to go forward.
right.
And then when it comes down to building homes and otherwise, I would hope that the federal, provincial governments in the district in Nipissing would all get in there and start doing that, that wouldn't become a cost on us, because in all fairness, we're not a service delivery manager as it relates to public housing. And I don't think that that's a business that we're in a position to get into.
For sure, taxes would go up.
And I think at the start of all this, we said inflation was 5.9, so coming in at 5. Yes.
Or 4.89.
4.89. I like it.
And I do believe that we believe that, I believe it's 519,000 or something like that, we give it to the district in Nipissing. About 36.5% of that goes to the district in Nipissing Housing Corporation. So $18,000 of our levy that goes to the district in Nipissing, that goes directly into housing, for which we don't currently receive any benefits. So I believe the mayor is going to be speaking to that at their meeting next week.
Speaking or yelling or something.
Stand on the chair.
In our favorite payment once a year.
Okay, getting back to the 5%, I'm okay with Councillor Collins' suggestion that it be lowered to
Yeah,
just
me too.
below, but I'm also fully prepared to defend the 5%. Most people see through the, you're trying to mislead people by saying, well, it's only 4.9.
It was only a suggestion.
I understand.
Well,
I honestly didn't think 5% was all that bad.
I think the biggest sell, at least when I was on campaign trail, is Dickens. They watch the increases pretty, not that we don't all, but they watch it real close and they're pretty adamant about how they feel.
And I think that is because they already have their primary home, and majority
Yeah.
of Dickens is a secondary home.
Yeah,
And they're balancing whether or not they can afford it.
the two.
I have a
But
question.
Welcome back, where are you? I see you.
Yes, my question's directed to Jennifer. When was the last time, and speak up because I missed half of the meeting at that end of the table. When was the last time we've seen an increase like this? Of this size?
Here since 2016, and we've done 1% increases with the exception of 1 year at a 2% increase.
Okay, so this is going to be a tough thing for a fixed income family or an individual for that matter, or a couple, for them to swallow, because this is going to be the biggest increase that we've done since 2016.
That is correct.
So it's going to be a tough sell, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
I think we're all sympathetic, Sean, but, you know, the inflation rate in the last year has been unprecedented. Since, I think the last time was 2008, actually, that we had a significant increase because we had a big jump in inflation at that time. So, but
I think we have a choice here as a council, as I see it. Do we pull more from reserve and make this increase less, and then we have less money to fall back on if there's problems? Or do we put it out of 5%? That's our two choices. And if we go down the pull more from reserve, how much more do we pull from reserve? What do we believe an okay amount to raise the taxes be? I mean, in an ideal world, we don't raise them at all, but that's not reality. So do we pull more from reserve and reduce this increase? Or do we accept 5% and leave things as they are? Because we've already pulled some from reserve to stabilize it.
Well, to me, that's a big situation right there. I mean, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes.
So. You know,
But-
as far as,
when this township started off in 1998, 25 years ago, we had zero money in reserve, zero. We still survived.
Yeah.
We've grown significantly since then. And our budget has increased dramatically since then. But I'm a little sympathetic to the idea of just drawing 4% of this out of the reserve.
We're in a nice position. We don't have anything on a loan or a leasing agreement or anything like that. So if we needed a vehicle, we could quite logistically go to a bank and not have to take it out of reserve and pay bank rates, etc. And we've not had to do that, to my knowledge, over the last 8 to 10 years. So we're in a very financially sound position. Should we be looking to pull more from reserve and reduce this burden to our taxpayers? What is the ethical thing for us to do? And that's why we're here sitting around this council table to discuss this.
Well, I guess if I may, my question would be to Jennifer and to Brian, if we pulled some money out, more money out of the reserve, what does that do? Does that really? Does it not allow us to do some things, like if we need this truck we're getting, or if we need a
I
study,
think
etc.?
what we have to recognize, and if we go getting into drawing down reserves, the problem we're gonna have is, first off, we don't have an asset management plan in front of us, so we don't have a plan of how much it's gonna cost us year over year to keep up what we already own. Add to that, we've got a structure here in town. If that structure needed to be rehabbed tomorrow, I could be into $3 to $5 million. So when you start thinking about, you know, in the grand scheme of things, yes, we have a couple of million in reserves, but if I have one physical bridge structure that needs to be replaced, you can dump $3, $4, $5 million on a bridge structure in an awful big hurry. And so now, what reserves have you got? We've also got a limit that we're allowed to borrow. The annual repayment limit of the municipality is 25% of your based out on 25%, I believe. Anyway, our annual repayment limit, if I'm not wrong, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $6 or $7 million. So that's the maximum of our borrowing capacity. So if we had to go borrow $10 million, and I'll give you a good example, I've been speaking recently about our building out at the Public Works garage. The yard is undersized. It doesn't house all of our equipment appropriately. It was built in the 1960s by MTO. It's drafty on the best of days. That facility has not had any love since 1997. That's the last time MTO did anything down there. Anything that it's had by us has been strictly keep it operational, keep the roof on it. We've done no major maintenance because we don't own the building. If we needed to rebuild that facility somewhere else so that we would have what we need. Just yesterday, I was speaking to an engineer, Brian, and I've been going through a review of that facility. To rebuild that facility, we're probably in the $8 to $12 million just for that facility. So this is just giving people the grand scheme and the scope of, our assets are highly valued. I can't recall now, Jennifer, do you happen to remember the value of our assets in the insured value content?
I don't know that number. No.
It's very significant, right? So we start paving roads. Pavement right now is quite expensive. I think when I had water and sewer underneath me, we're paying $1 million a kilometer. So when you start thinking about the value and the cost of doing things over again, like I said, I believe that if we did a double lift, which is 100 mils, 90 mils on this, right, where it's currently proposed down to the gate of the mill, I'm guessing we will be closer to 1 million than we are to 750,000. And that's just one road in our town. So I mean, I'm not saying we can't deal with drawdowns on reserves. I don't recommend them. I recommend that once we get an asset management plan received, reviewed, approved, and the financial plan with it, that we'll have a better picture of where we should or shouldn't be going as it relates to reserve and reserve transfers.
The 5% increase, and when you're looking at the 66 or 86, that's over a year, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So it's like $20.
It's 40, anyone that has $100,000 owned property, and there's quite a few properties that are 100,000 and under in our community. 100,000 is $43 a year.
Right.
I don't know if you're doing renovations on your house, your lumber just went up more than that this year.
Absolutely.
For me,
Okay.
I'm in favor of leaving with what's been recommended. That's my,
So do we have to make a decision on this now? Or will this go to council meeting next month?
A consensus would be nice, and if any change, then I could present that change at the next council meeting and perhaps pass the budget.
Okay, so
And this increase would start
With the August.
the August, October, yeah.
So actually, it's in 6 months that it's collected, not in 12. So we're collecting half of last year's right now,
Mhm.
so the increase would all be on the next,
Yes.
so it's spread over 6, well, 5. I agree with Maryland Valley. I'm happy with the 5. I'm willing to defend 5%.
I agree.
can we go around the table? Is that a sensible thing to do?
I think so.
Okay, personally myself, I'm okay. And I'm prepared to defend the 5, but 4.9 might look easier. But either of the two, I'm happy with. Councillor Freund, you said 5, yeah?
Yep.
Councillor Kier?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, being the banker in the group,
Yes.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. The sound figures in front of us that we're going to stand by.
I agree.
yeah, Sean.
Sean, what's your thoughts there?
I have a couple of questions. Okay, one is we're gonna have to backtrack a little bit here to, there was $77,000 allotted for, it was a program, a computer program, I believe.
Yep, that's correct.
That's money that we put into reserve, an efficiency grant that we're now using. and we were allowed to spend it on this software. So
Okay.
the efficiency grant has financed that.
Okay, that's what I want to know about. And the other thing too is staff salaries. There was an increase in that as well too. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Not in the current year. That adjustment was made, Sean, as part of the compensation and pay equity review that was required when the chief building official was brought on permanent full-time and his rate was adjusted. It required an adjustment across the board. So
Okay.
that review was undertaken last year. The adjustments were made in August. And there's been based on the significance of that, I did not apply any CPI or otherwise to the current year grid.
Okay, I just want to make this clear because there's going to be questions coming my way. I know that, and I have to answer them, right? So, yes, thank you. Now getting back to the 5%, I guess we are going to have to, make it palatable somehow.
So you're okay with us to go ahead with 5%?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay, then I think you have your answer, yeah?
Yeah, so I believe then we will bring this to the April 5th council meeting for approval, official approval.
I personally like to thank you for all your hard work
Okay.
and the hours that I know that you've put in, way beyond what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do. So I think from all of us in this township, not just council, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
I have one last thing. No, we talked a little bit about sending out the message along with that.
Yes,
Now, is that, would that be you that's doing that up?
she would draw that up under, and it would go out on the council's. Or approval, I would think, that's the way we go. It would be just an information in package, am I right, Frank?
We can do something up if you'd like.
Yeah,
Are you talking like maybe a statement of sorts?
yeah, just a brief outline about why this is and that maybe a comparison. So people understand, like, that we say, if your house is worth 150,000, this is what your tax increase is and why. Just something that it
No
simplifies it.
surprises.
We can certainly take the average and median property as well
Yeah.
from Opta
Yeah.
and show what those are doing. Just so that people have an understanding of
Yeah,
where the 50th percentile is and what the average is as well, because there's quite a difference between the average and 50th percentile.
and then on that, I would put, if you have further questions, please contact and your name if you want, Jennifer, so that people, can call. And I can go to the
So
post
you're
office.
talking that you just want this as part of the budget package, or sorry, the council package.
That's right, when you send out
Look
the,
at it and say, yes, that sounds good, please
Yeah.
send it out.
And after our April meeting, when it's obviously been made official, maybe we can have a few lines put onto the website too.
So we always do put the presentation,
Yeah.
so this gives a lot of information, and I would encourage you to direct people back to that presentation with their
For sure.
questions, and then also to me here at the office. But yes, all this does go onto the website.
I mean, our people need to know that not only have we drawn down from our reserve money, we've also axed $380,000 worth as well to keep it to 5%.
Right.
Because the normal personnel in the township will be unaware of that.
yeah, and no matter how we say it, they're going to say, oh, my taxes went up by $50, what are you doing?
And make also add some comparison to other communities,
Yeah, that helps.
because, somebody's gonna say, oh, well, Barry Spade didn't go up more than.
Yeah, we're waiting for Barry's Bay's response.
So how would council like to see that presented? Because I can present that one of two ways, because everyone has different needs, right? So I can present that, Whitewater region increased their tax rates by 8.9%, 8.99%, that the county of Renfrew has a 2.5% levy increase on top of that.
No,
Or I can simply take the tax rate of some of those other municipalities, and I can plug in and make it say, at $100,000, here's your rate. At $100,000 there, this is your rate. And that, at least they can see that there's a significant difference between what they're paying for what they're getting versus what they may have been paying somewhere else.
I think to combine, people don't the general public don't understand single tier
Yeah,
versus upper tier. But just to combine the two rates, I think is sufficient. And if anyone asks, well, that's broken down, we could explain.
okay, so just take the rates and
Total
present the
rate,
rate, the total rate increase, percentage increase, okay.
My thought. Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
What I get all the time, and I get it especially from people in Dickens Ward, is that, oh, before amalgamation, I only paid $100 a year, now I'm paying $5,000 a year.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and what are we getting for what we're
And
paying
what's the difference?
taxes?
Yeah.
What are we getting?
We don't get da 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 da.
Yeah, yeah, you're not doing anything for us. The only thing you did was pave the road. Well, it's pretty
That took
good
a lot.
pavement.
Yeah, in Murchison Ward, we had good foresight. We paved all our roads before amalgamation.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, are we happy to move on? Can I have a proposal for adjournment, please?
I'll make the motion.
That's councillor Florent and seconded by councillor Sidon. Thank you, everybody, and appreciate everybody's hard work.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something, everybody, before we adjourn here. I want to apologize for not attending today in person. I had full intentions, but things happened this morning that, yeah, I wouldn't have made it. So